Requests for final meals, a last chance for indulgence, an attempt to send a message, or a simple personal desire. What do death row inmates choose for their last meal? Today, we will explore some unusual requests and the crimes that led them to death row. Get ready for an intriguing and sometimes surprising journey. Hello everyone. Welcome to our channel. In today's video, we are going to dive into the final meal requests of some of the most notorious prisoners in the United States. Alongside these unusual requests, we will uncover the crimes that led them to death row and the states where they were convicted and executed. But before we begin, let's understand a bit about how the death penalty works in the United States. The death penalty is a legal practice in several states in the U.S. Currently, 27 states allow the death penalty, including California, Florida, and Ohio. The method of execution varies, with lethal injection being the most common, but other methods such as the electric chair, gas chamber, hanging, and firing squad are still used in some states. Death row inmates have the right to make a final meal request. The rules for these requests vary from state to state. Some states set a value limit, usually around $40, while others do not impose strict restrictions, as long as the request is reasonable and feasible. Offering a final meal is seen as a gesture of humanity, recognizing the dignity of the individual even in their final moments. It is a rite of passage, marking the transition from life to death, and offers a small comfort to the prisoner. Additionally, maintaining this practice helps to keep the prisoner calm and shows that the state, even exercising extreme power, adheres to norms of civility. Our first case is James Edward Smith, convicted and executed in Texas in 1990. Smith was sentenced to death for the murder of Larry Don Rojas during a convenience store robbery. But what really caught attention was his final meal request. Smith asked for a lump of dirt, wishing to use it for a voodoo ritual. When the request was denied, he ended up opting for a cup of yogurt. This unusual request reflects his belief in spiritual practices, even in his final moments. Velma Barfield, known as the Death Row Granny, was the first woman to be executed in the United States since 1962. Convicted in North Carolina, Barfield was sentenced to death in 1984 for poisoning her boyfriend, Stuart Taylor. For her last meal, Barfield requested something simple and comforting: a bag of cheese puffs, cheese doodles, and a Coca-Cola. This modest request contrasts with the gravity of her crimes, reminding us that behind every criminal, there is a human being with common tastes and preferences. Philip Workman was convicted and executed in Tennessee in 2007 for the murder of a police officer during a robbery at a fast food restaurant. His final request was quite altruistic. He asked for a vegetarian pizza to be donated to a homeless person. Although his request was denied by the authorities, many people in Nashville donated pizzas to the needy in his memory. This humanitarian gesture at the end of his life left a positive impact on the community. Victor Fager was convicted and executed in Iowa in 1963 for the kidnapping and murder of a doctor. His final request was simple and deeply symbolic: a single olive with the pit still in it. Fager explained that he wanted an olive tree to grow from the pit as a symbol of peace. This request highlights an attempt at redemption and reflection on his actions. Known as the Freeway Killer, William Bonin was convicted and executed in California in 1996 for a series of murders of young men. Bonin made an extravagant final meal request: 2 large pizza sandwiches, 3 pints of chocolate ice cream, and 18 cans of Coca-Cola. His choice of such an indulgent meal can be seen as a last chance to satisfy his cravings before his execution. Ronnie Lee Gardner, convicted and executed in Utah in 2010, was sentenced to death for the murder of a lawyer during an escape attempt. For his last meal, Gardner requested lobster tail, steak, apple pie, and vanilla ice cream. Additionally, he asked to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy while eating. This request not only reflects his culinary tastes but also a desire to find some comfort and distraction in his final hours. Ray Rector was convicted and executed in Arkansas in 1992 for the murder of a police officer and a civilian. For his last meal, he requested a steak, fried chicken, pecan pie, and fruit punch. Interestingly, he set the pie aside, saying he was saving it for later. This peculiar gesture is a reminder of the complexity of the human mind, even in its final moments. Thomas J. Grasso, convicted and executed in Oklahoma in 1995, was sentenced to death for the murder of two elderly people. Grasso made a particularly detailed final meal request: 2 dozen steamed mussels, 2 dozen steamed clams, a Burger King cheeseburger, half a pound of pork ribs, 2 strawberries, a strawberry milkshake, a can of SpaghettiOs, and a pumpkin pie with whipped cream. At the time of his execution, he complained that the spaghetti had been substituted with regular pasta. This detailed request and his final complaint reflect his attempt to exercise control over his last hours. Jonathan Nobles was convicted and executed in Texas in 1998 for the murder of 2 women during a drug-fueled rage. Nobles, who had converted to Catholicism while on death row, requested to participate in the Eucharist before his execution. This spiritual request highlights his search for redemption and spiritual preparation before his death. Odell Barnes, convicted and executed in Texas in 2000 for the murder of Helen Bass, made a final request that was more of a political statement than a meal: justice, equality, and world peace. Barnes wanted to use his last words to highlight what he considered to be the injustice of his trial, using his final moment to try to make a difference. These final meal requests range from extravagant to symbolic, reflecting the complexities and personalities of the condemned. They remind us that even in their final moments, each person has a unique story and a last wish. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing content like this. See you next time. Thank you.